The lights of the orbital station flickered like a dying heartbeat, throwing long, twitching shadows across the corridors. Jason Ward floated down the narrow passageway, adjusting the magnetic grips on his boots to keep from spinning into the wall for the 100th time. He muttered to himself, a mixture of self-reassurance and complaint. Space, the final frontier, more like the final headache. Who designed these narrow corridors anyway? Was the architect blind? His voice echoed softly against the cold metal, bouncing off the walls in tiny metallic laughter, and for a moment, he imagined the station itself might chuckle back. Ahead, a series of broken panels revealed a faint glow pulsing from one of the smaller chambers. His sensors had picked it up hours ago, a low-energy signature inconsistent with any known human or alien technology. As he drifted closer, the airlock hissed, and a subtle wave of static prickled at his fingertips. "Okay, Jason, don't touch anything you're not supposed to. Wait, too late," he said, brushing against a console that immediately sparked and hissed like a startled snake. He yelped, spun once in zero-G, and caught himself on the opposite wall, feeling the heat of embarrassment rise faster than his pulse. "Maybe they didn't invent a doorbell here because no one ever comes by," he quipped to the empty corridor. Inside the chamber, the source of the signal became clear. She floated in a suspended medical pod, a thin membrane of nanomaterial holding her like a cocoon of light. Her skin had the soft warmth of human flesh, but her long ears extended in elegant curves above her head, twitching faintly at the faint vibrations of the station's hum. Her eyes, closed in apparent rest, were too expressive even in sleep. They held a strange mixture of caution, pain, and something unspoken that made Jason pause. For a soldier trained to move past fear, hesitation was unusual, but here it lingered, stubborn and insistent. He leaned closer to the pod, trying to assess the controls. "All right, let's see if I can unfreeze you without, accidentally giving you a heart attack or worse." His hands moved over the interface and the pod hissed, its nanomaterial pulsing in soft waves. A faint spark jumped from his glove, causing the woman to flinch and twitch. Her long ears rotated, sensing the disturbance, and she gave a small, incredulous sound, half sigh, half laugh, before returning to stillness. Jason's eyebrows rose. "You're awake, aren't you? Don't worry, I don't bite, usually. Except on Tuesdays." He grinned, mostly at himself, then sighed. "Okay, bad joke, moving on." She opened her eyes slowly, revealing irises like liquid silver, reflecting the dim chamber light in intricate patterns. Her gaze was direct, assessing him without words, and Jason had the sudden realization that he was the one being studied, like an animal in a zoo. "So, hello, you're awake. That's good, right? Because if you're not, well, I guess you'd still be lying there, which would be awkward." He tried to make his voice light, but the weight of her stare made him stumble over the next words. "Anyway, I'm Jason, human soldier. Not certified alien rescuer, but I do accept tips." The woman's lips curved into something that could have been a smile or a grimace. It was impossible to tell. Then, with a subtle flick of her long ears, she gestured toward the pod controls, her movements precise despite her paralysis. Jason followed her lead, adjusting the pod settings and lowering the suspended field that held her. "Ah, see? Teamwork already. I like this. We might just survive the next 5 minutes without frying the whole station." As the pod's containment field dissipated, she floated free, arms unsteady but graceful, like a dancer rediscovering motion after years of stillness. She tried to stand, wobbling slightly, and Jason caught her by the elbow, holding her steady. "Whoa, careful, one false move and we both get a free trip to the station floor. Trust me, it's not as fun as it sounds." She gave a faint laugh, the sound musical and foreign, but it lifted some of the tension in the room. "Okay," he muttered, "so step 1, don't panic. Step 2, figure out why everyone else abandoned you. Step 3, try not to get shot by your own species while we figure that out." He pointed vaguely toward the corridors outside. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully, a flicker of amusement passing over her features. She tilted her head and Jason's voice broke into another string of nervous humor. "Yes, I know. Humans are loud, messy, and have a tendency to overcomplicate rescue missions. But hey, we make excellent sidekicks." He paused, "Or at least mediocre ones. Definitely better than, robot vacuum sidekicks." She gave a soft, incredulous sound, her long ears twitching as if mocking him, and Jason laughed, the sound echoing off the cold walls like a shaky trumpet. The station groaned, a deep metallic lament that reminded them both of the fragility of their situation. She looked out the window at the shattered remains of the orbital ring, her gaze distant for a moment, and Jason leaned closer, whispering, "Don't worry, we'll figure something out. Worst case scenario, I make more jokes until someone laughs at us from orbit." She tilted her head, a small smirk forming, and Jason realized that despite the danger, she trusted him enough to humor his nonsense. Minutes stretched into hours as they navigated the winding corridors, Jason keeping a careful eye on her movements and cracking offhand jokes about the alien architecture. "Who designed this place? Someone who hates short people, I swear." She responded with a mental nudge that caused the lights to flicker in amusement, a signal Jason had come to understand as a form of laughter in her species. Their banter formed a rhythm, a tenuous bridge between human chaos and alien precision, and Jason realized that for the first time since stepping onto the station, he felt less like a soldier on a mission and more like a guardian in a story that had yet to be fully told. By the time they reached a small observation deck overlooking the wreckage of the station, she was leaning on him for support, her long ears brushing against his shoulder. "You're heavier than you look," she said, her tone dry but teasing. Jason laughed. "You're not exactly a feather yourself. Good thing we make a sturdy team, huh?" She allowed herself a small smile, the first true one, and he felt an unfamiliar warmth settle in his chest. In that moment, drifting together above a shattered world, he knew their story had just begun, and that somehow humor might just keep them alive long enough to write it. Jason floated along the narrow corridor, the hum of the station's failing life support resonating faintly in his helmet. Behind him, the alien woman clung to his arm, her long ears flicking and twisting as if they were tiny antennae picking up the faint vibrations of danger. "Don't let go," he said, though his voice carried more humor than command. "If you float away, I'm not explaining to command why I lost an alien on my first day of heroics." She blinked, a flash of silver catching the dim light, and let out a soft sound, half amusement, half exasperation, that made him chuckle. "Yes, I'm hilarious, you're welcome." They reached the junction leading to the shuttle bay, and Jason hesitated. The path was littered with the debris of old maintenance drones, and one particularly stubborn armpiece twitched as if it still held some semblance of life. "Great," Jason muttered, tapping his helmet. "An army of retired cleaning robots, just what every hero needs, a mechanical uprising." The alien woman's ears twitched toward the object and she let out a low hum. He glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, right, sorry. You can probably hack that thing while I keep us alive, huh?" She didn't answer with words but extended a slender hand, fingers moving in subtle gestures that made the dormant robot arm retract like it had been shamed into submission. Jason blinked. "Okay, impressive. I take back everything I said about humans being overqualified for boredom. You might actually be better at this than me." The shuttle bay doors were partially sealed, a consequence of the station's failing systems. Jason floated toward the control panel, muttering, "All right, shuttle, do your thing, hopefully not explode." That's the usual first impression for any human-alien rescue team. The alien woman's fingers danced over her portable interface, her eyes narrowing with concentration. Sparks flared briefly from the panel, then died, leaving the door sliding open silently. "Nice work," Jason said, grinning. "And here I thought my main skill was yelling at broken things." She tilted her head, a faint smirk playing across her lips. "I do more than hack doors," she said, and Jason could swear the words carried a subtle teasing note, though he had no idea if that was intentional. "Ah, so you're the mysterious long-eared genius type. Good to know, I like geniuses. They make me feel less bad about all the mistakes I make." Inside the shuttle, zero gravity made their movements awkward, but the alien woman adapted quickly. She twisted gracefully, catching herself against a bulkhead as Jason fumbled with the control panel. "Easy there, gravity-challenged hero," she teased. "I'm fine with being paralyzed, but I'm not about to let your clumsiness pull me into a wall." Jason laughed, tossing a small tool toward her and missing by a wide margin. "Hey, that's a tactical distraction device. Well, technically it's a wrench, but close enough." She caught it effortlessly, one eyebrow raised. "Impressive aim, not." He groaned. "You're going to make me cry in zero-G, aren't you?" She let out a soft, almost musical laugh. Jason shook his head, wondering why humor always seemed to follow him into the void. As the shuttle lifted from the station, the wreckage of the orbiting ring stretched beneath them like a broken necklace. Jason engaged the engines, muttering, "All right, let's hope no one left a tip-off for bounty hunters, because I didn't bring snacks for a fight. Very important, believe me." She looked at him with one corner of her mouth twitching upward, and he added, No comments on my culinary preparedness? Fine, suit yourself." The alien woman's hands hovered over her interface, her long fingers manipulating energy fields, scanning for signals that might betray pursuit. Jason leaned back against the console. "You know, in all the movies, the human soldier is supposed to be the hero, but judging by your skills, I think you might have been the main character the whole time." She glanced at him, ears flicking, and the hint of a grin appeared. "I might have been, but heroes can be boring without a bit of chaos." The journey through the meteor field was predictably perilous. Rocks the size of small buildings drifted past, some on impossible trajectories that made Jason sweat under his helmet. "Okay, note to self, next time wear a bulletproof suit and a prayer," he muttered. The alien woman's eyes followed every movement with an uncanny precision, her ears twitching toward the faint disturbances in the gravitational field. She gestured, and Jason adjusted the shuttle's path, narrowly avoiding a collision with a tumbling asteroid. "See," she said, voice calm, "you survive because you listen." Jason grinned sheepishly. "I survive because you scare the rocks into submission." Noted. Hours passed as they drifted, sharing stories and jokes to keep the tension manageable. Jason recounted tales of human military absurdities, like accidentally training a robotic medic to give a rabbit an IV instead of a human soldier. The alien woman responded with subtle mental nudges that created sparks in the shuttle systems, which Jason interpreted as laughter. "You're dangerous and funny at the same time," he said. "I have no idea how that works, but I like it." She tilted her head, ears twitching as if acknowledging the compliment. Eventually, they reached an abandoned relay station on the edge of the galactic frontier. Jason docked the shuttle with careful precision, muttering, "All right, home sweet abandoned station. I've always dreamed of living somewhere with no life support failures and zero chance of alien attacks." "Okay, that dream's a lie, but let's pretend." The alien woman floated beside him, observing the docking sequence with an almost imperceptible smile. "You adapt quickly," she said. Jason raised an eyebrow. Flattery or warning? "Either way, I like it." Inside the station, the environment was eerily silent, but Jason's humor never faltered. "Okay, plan. We explore, we avoid traps, and we try not to find any more abandoned robots with an agenda." She moved ahead with him, ears twitching toward every sound, clearly enjoying the banter as much as the mission. "If this is your idea of humor," she said, "then humans are predictably entertaining." Jason laughed, floating past her. "Predictable and entertaining, that's my brand, you should try it sometime." She responded with a soft chuckle, one that echoed strangely in the empty corridor. They spent the next few hours repairing a small energy generator, their hands working in sync despite differences in physiology. Jason joked about the alien woman having more dexterity in one hand than he could muster with both, and she teased him back about how humans overestimate their coordination. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and the generator hummed to life. "Look at that," Jason said, wiping sweat from his brow. "We made life support in an abandoned station. I should put that on my resume. Professional miracle worker." She gave a small smile, the first real one that didn't hide any suspicion, and Jason felt the weight of their connection growing. By the time they settled near the observation deck, overlooking the fringe of uncharted space, Jason realized how much had changed. Humor had kept them sane, but trust had been built in its quiet spaces. She leaned on him lightly, ears brushing against his arm. "We make a good team," she said softly. Jason grinned, shrugging. "Yeah, team chaos with occasional heroics, I like it." They sat in silence for a moment, floating above a void that could swallow them whole, yet feeling safer than they had in days. The alien woman glanced at him, a hint of curiosity and amusement dancing in her silver eyes, and Jason realized that in this precarious frontier, laughter and trust were the shields they both needed. The shuttle shuddered violently as Jason gripped the console, sparks flying from a misaligned panel. Okay, I've been in tight spots before, but somehow this one feels like a tutorial in how to die in space without a warning. The alien woman floated beside him, her long ears swiveling like radar dishes, eyes narrowing as she scanned the approaching drones. "They've found us," she said calmly, a hint of amusement curling her tone. "I see. And by they, you mean everyone who ever judged you for being paralyzed, yes?" Jason glanced at her, trying to keep his voice steady, though it came out more like a nervous chuckle. "Because if so, I think they're overcompensating with firepower." The drones closed in, small but heavily armed, their sensors locking onto the shuttle. Jason activated evasive maneuvers, spinning the vessel through the asteroid field with a clumsy grace that made him feel more like a pinball than a pilot. "You know," he said, voice tinged with humor even as lasers grazed the hull, "I always wanted to play zero-G bumper cars. Didn't think it would be with death chasing us." The alien woman leaned over the navigation console, her fingers glowing faintly as she manipulated the shuttle's gravity stabilizers. Jason watched her work, realizing that her abilities were no longer just impressive, they were essential. "You might want to watch your trajectory," she said, one eyebrow lifted, her tone teasing despite the chaos. Jason laughed, a short, sharp burst. "I see, so you're the brains, I'm the charm," which is a nice way of saying I'm expendable. She let out a soft, musical sound that seemed to translate as laughter. "Expendable, not if you keep talking, your voice is entertaining, and morale is important." He blinked. "Morale, right. I'll remember that the next time I'm dodging laser fire and providing comedic relief simultaneously." As they weaved through the asteroid field, the alien woman guided the shuttle into a narrow tunnel carved into a massive rock, the path barely wider than the vessel itself. Jason held his breath, muttering, "Yeah, nothing says fun like threading a needle with a spaceship. I wonder if insurance covers asteroid collision therapy." She flicked her ears toward him, a subtle sign of amusement, and Jason grinned through the tension. Okay, I get it, you think my jokes are terrible, but admit it, they keep us both alive." The drones followed, squeezing into the tunnel with alarming precision. Jason's hands moved instinctively, punching commands into the controls while the alien woman adjusted energy shields and gravitic fields. Sparks flew, hull panels groaned, and yet they moved as one, a synchronized team born of necessity and trust. "I swear," Jason said, voice shaking but amused, "if I survive this, I'm going to write a book. How to be chased through space by your own bad decisions." She shot him a glance, silver eyes gleaming. "You might have a market. Humans are fond of storytelling after all." Emerging from the tunnel, they found themselves in a wide, abandoned colony orbiting a distant, uncharted moon. Jason exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Ah, paradise. Totally safe, completely abandoned. Nothing could possibly go wrong here, right?" The alien woman's lips curved in the faintest smile. "It's safer than the station at least, and we have space to breathe." Jason floated closer, noticing how her presence now felt less like a mission objective and more like a partner in mischief. "You know, I didn't expect to come into this sector and end up with a long-eared genius, but I have to admit, it's been enjoyable. Terrifying but enjoyable." They spent the following hours restoring a small section of the colony's energy grid, her fingers moving over the panels with precision, his hands following her instructions. Humor punctuated their work, Jason teasing her about how humans could never build a meal as efficiently as she powered a reactor, her subtle nudges in response sparking lights and small bursts of energy. "Okay," Jason said, grinning, "if this whole galaxy thing falls apart, you and I could always run a tech support business. Alien-human dynamic repairs. What do you think?" She tilted her head, ears twitching, and gave a sound that made Jason laugh until his sides ached. Night fell on the colony, or what counted as night in zero-G orbit, the distant stars casting silver light across the structures. Jason floated beside her, looking out at the vast, dark void. "You know, I came here thinking I'd just do my job and go home," he said quietly. "But I think I've learned more about trust, patience, and partnership than I ever expected." She looked at him, eyes reflecting starlight, and nodded slowly. "And I've learned that even humans, messy and loud as they are, can be allies, even friends." In the quiet aftermath, the alien woman tested her mobility, discovering that with her abilities enhanced and stabilized, she could move more freely than she had in months. Jason offered support, though her teasing tone made it clear she could manage on her own. "Don't get used to helping me," she said lightly. "I might let you think you're indispensable, but we both know who saved whom." Jason laughed, holding her gaze. "Touché, but if anyone asks, we're a team, equal parts genius and charming idiot." She let out a soft laugh, her long ears flicking in amusement. Days passed in the colony, and their bond grew, built not just on rescue and survival, but on laughter, trust, and mutual respect. Jason taught her human idioms, jokes that didn't translate well but made them both smile.